Welcome to a special episode of Super Mystery Bros, our 10-episode retrospective, where I'm joined by Kyle. Before we get into this, I want to give you all a fair warning that there's going to be spoilers in this, so if you still have some episodes from 1 to 10 that you still want to listen to, you might want to listen to those first before this one. But if you don't care...
they're all super good.
Yeah, exactly. You interrupted my train of thought, man. Sorry. But anyway, there's going to be no script or story on this one. What we're going to do here is that we're going to talk about each episode that we've done individually. I'm going to talk about whether my opinion has changed since the original recordings. And we're going to just talk about maybe some loose ends that we forgot to mention in some of our discussions. And I'm going to get Kyle's opinions on the episodes that he wasn't a part of. And then we're probably going to talk about a little bit about what went right, what went wrong, and how we can improve on future episodes. So before we begin, though, let's just talk a little bit about the technical side of the podcast before we get into, the past episodes. I've got to mention something up front that went horribly wrong on episodes 1 through 6. And it's because I could not for the life of me figure out why Ivan's microphone sounded so much worse than mine did. And like a fucking idiot, it took me about 9 episodes until I figured out what the problem was. So the horrendous reverb and echo on Ivan's microphone should be fixed on future episodes that he's going to be a part of. So Ivan is local to where I live, so we do this show together in person. But Kyle lives on the other side of the world from us, so our episodes are done remotely. So first and foremost, I think I've fixed the sound quality, and we should get a much better sound moving forward, especially with Ivan. So aside from the microphone issue, it's gone better than I'd hoped, so that's good. That's pretty good. Do you have anything that you want to say up front before we kind of dig into the past episodes?
All I want to say is what a world we live in where we can record live pretty much a podcast episode from opposite sides of the planet.
Yeah, isn't it? It's kind of the shit. Man. It's kind of the shit we dreamed about doing when we were kids, and now it's a reality that we take for granted.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let's dig into it unless you have anything that you want to bring up. Oh, actually, there is one thing I wanted to bring up. So we've received very little input from listeners of the show, and it would be nice if anybody out there listening could write us reviews on Apple Podcasts. We've only received one so far, or even the star button on Spotify. It could help us reach more people. So if you like what we do, it's quick and easy. We'd be really grateful for it. I'd also like to extend out an offer here. If you leave us a 5-star rating and review, I mean, not just the 5-star button, but you also type something out on Apple Podcasts, you can shoot us an email at supermysterybrospodcast@gmail.com. Let us know that it was from you, and then we'll let you select an upcoming mystery for us to do. So I'm going to extend that out only to the first 3 people who do this. So does that sound good?
Prize.
Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, man, that sounds great.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to guarantee which co-host is going to be able to do your show. It's going to be a coin toss, whether that's going to be Ivan or Kyle. So I'm not going to let you choose. Hey guys, it's Nate from the future. I just want to give a shout out to George real quick for leaving us a positive review on Apple Podcasts. So George, if you're out there, feel free to shoot us an email at supermysterybrospodcast@gmail.com or a voice message on our website if you have a topic or mystery you'd like to hear us cover. Mayatej, I haven't forgotten about you either, and yours is on the way. So just to be clear here, I'm going to grandfather both of you in, and then the offer for the next 3 reviewers still stands, and it's going to start from George's review. Yeah, that's basically all I've got, man, before we start this out. So Fresno Nightcrawler, man, I want to know what you think because you were not a part of this episode, and I would like to know what you thought of our very first episode that we did.
I thought it was pretty creepy. I'm normally not into that kind of like supernatural stuff, right? And this guy's, security camera footage is something creepy scurrying across the lawn, all fuzzy and everything.
Mm-hmm.
A little creepy, but it on a personal level, it was really cool, to hear my buddy do a podcast, his first episode. It was cool to hear your voice because, like we said, we live on opposite sides of the planet, but I hadn't seen your face or even heard your voice since the last time you were in town. So it's been years. Yeah. So that was really cool, and, it's been a fun thing to just watch grow. I don't really have any opinions on the Fresno Nightcrawler thing, sorry, I didn't have more input on that one. Like, I don't know if it was just like a bag or something else, because the video's blurry and it's hard to tell.
Yeah,
so I'm just gonna say it was a creepy fucking phenomenon, man. Like, that one gave me chills.
I actually I could see how some people might think it was like a plastic bag blowing in the wind, but my opinion on the Fresno Nightcrawler and what it was, I think it's still a bird. My opinion hasn't changed on it. I actually, after we did that one, I watched the video over and over again to see if I could really find something that would help me determine what it was. And, if as you're watching this thing about to exit frame, like it's coming towards the camera, right, initially, and then it goes underneath the camera and then off frame. Oops, just hit the microphone. It comes off frame. And if you're looking closely, you can actually see the bird's head bobbing back and forth as it's moving. So to me, 100% some kind of bird. Gotcha. I was right. I think my assumption was right. You can see the head of this thing bobbing back and forth as it's walking, especially as it gets super close to the camera. So yeah,
that makes sense.
Really fucking old VHS tape that it's just a total piece of shit VHS tape that made it look like it's this fucking crazy ass shit.
Yeah, well, it, especially if you preface it with a title like Fresno Nightcrawler, it kind of gives you that preconception in your head,
right,
that it's something creepy.
Yeah, and I wasn't the one that came up with that name, so I don't take any of the credit for that. But as for the Yosemite footage and the Poland footage, those I think were hoaxes. My opinion hasn't changed there. One thing that might have changed is I've got to give a little bit more credit to that guy on the History Channel show. I think that it could have been something that he just misidentified, and then he kind of ran with it after people online told him that it was a Fresno Nightcrawler. So I'm less confident that it was a hoax. It might have just been some animal. It was like Ivan said, 2 deers standing on their hind legs fighting with each other. I think I could see that after he mentioned that on the episode. So I'm not so sure that what that guy captured on his camera was a hoax, but I don't think it was some crazy supernatural shit. So
yeah, no.
It's just a fun little story. I mean, this episode to me was kind of a turd. Definitely not my favorite episode, but it was kind of like like Ivan said, because like I talked with Ivan a while back about it, and he said something pretty profound. He said, well, in Russia, we have this saying, you can't make pancakes without first ruining the first one. So that's kind of how I see this episode, as it was
That's
kind
funny.
of
My mother-in-law kind of has the same saying, which is when you make pancakes, the first one always goes to the dogs.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same saying. So yeah, that's how I kind of feel about that episode. Just something to dip our toes into. We totally fucked it up, kind of, but it was our
okay,
first
man.
one.
It was the first episode.
Yeah.
You'd never done a podcast recording before.
Yeah. All right. So, do you have anything else you want to say about the Fresno Nightcrawler, or do you want to move on?
I think we can move on.
All right, so number 2, the shadow people phenomenon. So this one, believe it or not, is our most popular episode by downloads. So it wasn't something I was expecting, honestly. Like, we haven't delved into any ghostly phenomenon aside from this one yet, but I think we're going to have to do something else along these lines pretty soon.
If that's what the people want.
Yeah. So I mean, as for the episode itself, I still stand by the story that I told. And as for what shadow people are, I still have no fucking idea. The only thing that I do know is that it's a real phenomenon because it happened to me. There are a couple things that I forgot to mention in the story that I wish I had remembered to say. So I think now would be the time to bring it up. Like during the episode when I was telling this story, I felt that I didn't do a good enough job of describing what the figure actually looked like. So I'm going to do that right now. So as I saw this figure moving down the aisle of Sears, I mentioned that it was like a tall, dark, like human shaped figure, which is true, but that's like a very basic description. The other weird part about it was that it looked kind of like it was surrounded by some sort of like cloud or mist, and it was human-like, but it was surrounded by some like weird-ass vaporous cloud, but it was all black. Like it was all uniform, super dark black, and I don't really know how to describe it in words, really, but when I was looking for an episode photo for that episode, I went onto Google Images and I just searched for shadow people, and I found one that it fucking shocked me because it looked about 95% identical to what I saw in Sears. And that's the photo that I made the episode photo in Spotify or any other app that supports episode photos. So if you go on your app and it supports episode photos, that's the image for this episode. Is a very, very accurate description of what I saw when I was at Sears.
Fucking creepy, dude. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, so that's basically what I saw, but the only difference is that I didn't see a hat on it. I mean, it could have been wearing a hat for all I know, but it's not something that I noticed because I was looking at it kind of from the corner of my eye. So I didn't see like a whole lot of detail on it. So that was really the only difference, but that is a very, very accurate representation of what I saw.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be able to sleep again if I saw something like that.
You know, it's weird because it didn't really freak me out at the time, which was weird because prior to that, if you had asked me if seeing something like that would scare the shit out of me, I would say, oh, hell yeah. I would probably say the exact same thing that you just said. But it was really weird. Like, it didn't freak me out. I just went back to work, basically. I was waiting for the all clear to be announced for us to start counting our registers at Sears. And I just saw this fucking weird ass shit, but it happened so fast, like it within a matter of, I don't know, like 5 seconds maybe. So I didn't really have time in my head for all of this to sink in. Like, it didn't freak me. It all like hit me after it was already gone, where I was like, whoa, did I really just see that? And so yeah, like it didn't freak me out, which surprised me. And I went back and I counted my registers as normal. And yeah, after we were waiting for them to let us out, I was talking to some of the other employees, and I wanted to bring up that the guys that I talked to who worked in the back receiving area, the one that told me that he saw a ghost wearing Old West clothes, it didn't hit me until after that episode aired, that he might have been talking about the hat, which is something really weird. Which is something really weird that a lot of people report these shadow people wearing is some sort of top hat, like a cowboy style hat or a fedora.
That's so bizarre.
It's really bizarre. I don't know why a ghost would be wearing some kind of hat, but it's one of those things, man, that it makes no fucking sense, but it's not something that I can just dismiss as being fake and made up. Because,
especially because you had your own experience, and plus there's countless reports of it.
Yeah, and especially in that building, other people having their own experiences with shit. It kind of blew my mind. And do you have any questions or input about the episode? I mean, that's basically the only thing that I wanted to brush up on, was clarifying a couple things there.
Where I stand on supernatural phenomena like that, especially in the case of shadow people, which, is pretty much every report, or the vast majority of them, is they're only caught in your peripheral vision out of like the corner of your eye. Right. So I think a lot of these reports,
not always, but usually.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the reports are probably just a figment of your imagination, but if you have already read up on shadow people, your brain might just go there and you're like, oh shit, I just saw a shadow person. But even though I've never had any personal supernatural phenomenon experience myself, I do know that stuff is 100% real. When people are like, oh, ghosts aren't real, it's that I've never seen a ghost. I've never had any kind of weird, spooky experience, but they are for sure 100% real. Some people are just more sensitive to it than others,
That's kind of the way I see it too. I wouldn't say that I'm like sensitive to it, because that's really, I haven't had like, aside from that and some kind of weird stuff that I can't really connect directly to paranormal phenomenon. I went into it. I think I put an asterisk, an error asterisk next to what I said after the after I told the Sears story, right? So, but anyway, like I put an asterisk next to what I said after the Sears incident, because some weird stuff did start happening, like my uncle's death, and then some weird thudding sounds underneath my floor, underneath my room where I lived, and then my auntie telling the story of when she felt something grab her waist. And yeah, I mean, like, other than that stuff that happened between 2011 and 2012, I haven't had any other experiences with supernatural stuff. So the way I see it is I was kind of in the right place at the right time. And I wouldn't say that I'm more sensitive or anything. Just right place, right time. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So if you don't have anything else to go over on this one, do you want to go over Escape from Alcatraz, our episode 3?
Yeah. That was my favorite episode, personally.
That's interesting, because to me, this one is not one that I remember a whole lot about. It's kind of like, it didn't stand out in my brain as being particularly good or bad. It got off to a weak start. I remember, like, kind of low energy, Jeb Bush style, but I think we evolved into a pretty good conversation about it at the end.
Yeah.
And
I just liked all of like the technical aspects of it, each carefully planned step, in the made up life vests and the made up raft, and and then reviewing it later, like how many scientific inquiries were made into things like the tides and the flow of the water, and like where these guys could have wound up, and people made like models and computer programs to track all that stuff. I thought it was really cool.
And then the AI facial recognition technology that somebody used to try and figure out if those two men in the old photograph were the Anglin brothers. Like, I at the time I didn't put much weight into it, but I think since doing that episode, I do put a little bit more weight into that, because I do know that AI is scary accurate when it comes to stuff like that. So,
well, it is now. When was that facial recognition done? What
2020? 2020.
That's close enough. That's close enough. Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, too, I kind of felt that the firm that did that AI facial recognition study on the faces might have done that more as a advertisement to promote their technology. So
like a publicity stunt kind of thing.
Exactly. So that's kind of the way. Maybe I'm too cynical, but that's kind of where I stood on it. And the fact that they never turned up again, committing some other crime somewhere else. I mean,
yeah,
that was kind of like the biggest hint to me that they never made it. But I will say that at the time of doing that episode, I said I was like 70% sure that they didn't make it. But I would say now I'm more like 60%. So it did shift in their favor a little bit since doing that episode.
Yeah. No, I'm like 90% sure they made it. You know,
really? Why are you so sure?
Well, they never found any bodies. And then, you know, like I said, I listened to this episode. I actually listened to this episode twice. That's how much I fucking really enjoyed it, and try to pick it apart piece by piece, right? And every single step, it was all kind of unlikely, but you put it all together, and each step is possible, and the escape is possible if every step goes perfectly. Now, that normally doesn't happen in life, especially with sketchy undertakings like this, you know, but to quote Dr. Emmett Brown, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And now stack on top of that, your life and your freedom is on the line.
Well, yeah, that's definitely true. You know, another thing I was thinking about was the possibility that they had some outside help. And what I mean by outside help is someone waiting in the bay on a boat to pick them up, rather than them trying to go all the way to Angel Island on that shitty fucking raft. All they had to do was make it past the danger zone around Alcatraz itself, and then get picked up by somebody who is going to be there at a specific date and time. And I think that that's why the three men left the fourth guy behind. I can't remember his name, but he got left behind. And I think that they left him behind because their ride was going to leave without them, and they had to.
I think they left him behind because he was too fat to fit through the hole, and they didn't want to fucking lose any window that they had.
That could be true too.
Yeah, that would definitely make the escape a lot easier if they had planned that out. But I mean, the San Francisco Bay is huge, and this is in the middle of the night when it is fucking pitch black. You know, I mean, yeah, a time and location is great, but that's easier if you can give cross streets, dude. But out in the middle, the water and the pitch black, that would be a rough thing to figure out, a pickup location like that. You know?
Well, see, the thing is, I think they might have had access to flashlights, maybe. I wonder if they did. I don't know for certain, but it doesn't seem like too... Well, let me think. Some sort of illumination, right? And then I'm sure the boat, if there was a boat to pick them up, they would have had lights on the boat too. So they would have had to have something.
Yeah, it would be a lot easier to spot a boat, you know, but then... You know, the boat's got to find them. And so that's kind of like giving away your position if you're flicking flashlights out in the pitch blackness. You know, I mean, boats just have running lights. You know, so as long as you're not in whatever restricted waters area they have around the island, you know, no one's going to think anything of it. But if the boat's using like a spotlight to search the waters.
Well, no, that's not what I mean. I would just think like some sort of navigation light and just, okay, paddle towards those lights over there. That was kind of what I was thinking. And then, I guess they wouldn't even need flashlights, honestly. They could just paddle towards that location and then bam, they're there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've shifted my opinion just slightly more in their favor. I would say 60-40 now. I still think that if I were to choose one side or the other, I would say that they didn't make it, but I could be wrong. And yeah, do you have anything else you want to talk about with episode 3?
No, I think that was about it.
All right, Axeman of New Orleans, episode 4, the Halloween Scare-a-thon.
The creepiest fucking episode you did. You put a lot of effort into making that intro extra fucking freaky, man.
Yeah, so this one was actually one of my favorites so far that we've done. You know, at the time, I didn't really think much of the episode. Like, I thought it went okay. But I listened to it again recently, and I was like, oh, you know, I really enjoyed listening to that. And, you know, at the time, I had a horrible cold, and I was wearing a mask because I didn't want to contaminate Ivan at the time. But,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, dude, like, my opinions on that haven't changed really. I thought that we could have done better on the discussion part. We kind of blew past the categories of serial killer that Ivan brought up, and we just jumped right into what we thought without really explaining very well. So in the future, I got to do a better job of explaining stuff better.
If you say so, man, I think you add plenty of detail to your episodes.
Well, thanks. I still have the same opinion though. I think the guy was motivated by power and control rather than by anything else. Like, he could have had other side motives, but the primary thing that he was fueled by, in my opinion, was power and control. And yeah, I don't really have much else to say about that guy other than that. What about you? Do you have any thoughts on that guy?
I think that he was not 100% human. You know, like, maybe like was born a human, you know, human body, but I think something supernatural had a hold of this guy.
You think that an actual demon possessed him?
I mean, like, I didn't want to come out and like say that, but that or something like along those lines, like some extra evil energy is in him, on him, something driving him to do this gnarly stuff and to write the letters that the way he wrote it. You know, New Orleans, I'm not sure if you've been, but I've been a couple times, love going there, but there is weird, spooky energy to New Orleans. You know, really weird stuff. You know, there's lots of weird occult stuff going on there. Lots of dead bodies that they tried to bury for hundreds of years, and every time a big flood came, they would just pop up out of the ground, go floating down the street. You know,
yeah, that's fucked up.
That's why when you go to graveyards in New Orleans, they're all above ground crypts. But it took them a few times to figure that one out. Yeah, just old city. I've done multiple ghost tours through there. There is just freaky shit that happens in that city. Some evil, possessive energy. The stories I've heard of people walking past like particular buildings and just kind of like losing control of themselves for like a few minutes. Yeah, it's weird. So I totally believe that something paranormal, supernatural was in this guy, driving him.
Dude, you might be fucking right, man. Okay, I'm gonna just throw this out here, but what if the Axeman of New Orleans wasn't just one person? What if it was like a demon spirit that just jumped from body to body? And
possible
like
too.
Yeah, shit, dude. And like that letter that he wrote was really fucking weird.
Yeah. Like, that was out there. I mean, like, even if you're like a professional fiction writer, I don't know if you could just come up with something like that without having something like that deep in your soul.
Yeah, dude, I agree. It sucks, man, but it's been so long that one's never gonna be solved.
No, yeah. Never. Have you ever seen American Horror Story?
No.
So that's a show. It's been on FX, and every season is just like a completely different story, but they use a lot of like the same cast members. And one of the seasons they did was about a coven of witches in New Orleans, and they had a flashback episode about the Axeman of New Orleans, and it was the night where he issued the warning, that said anyone who plays jazz will not be harmed. And this coven of witches that lived there heard the warning, and they on purpose did not play jazz. And the Axeman showed up, and they killed him. It was a pretty cool take on the Axeman.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. They portrayed him as a saxophone player, because it's just full of jazz musicians. And he just hid a little hatchet inside of his sax case. And so he could just leave the bar he was playing at carrying the saxophone case. And whenever he targeted a house he wanted to go hit, he would have his weapon of choice with him wherever he went.
I think what's kind of interesting is I think a lot of the murders that happened from the Axeman was the victim's own axe that was like just grabbed from their yard. Yeah, like I can't remember which ones, but I remember being like, oh, this guy just went to somebody's house and killed them with their own axe. It's really bizarre.
That is bizarre. There's not a lot of yards in New Orleans.
Yeah.
But then again, my only real experience is fucking, the French
Bourbon
Quarter,
Street.
Bourbon Street, Toulouse, stuff like that.
All right. So if you've got nothing else to add to the Axeman of New Orleans, do you want to talk about episode 5 next?
Yeah, let's go for it.
So this one actually, believe it or not, might be my favorite one that we've done so far. And I say that, yeah.
Is it because you went to pilot school?
No, that's not the reason. So the reason is because I've heard of this story a lot, right? And I've seen it talked about online, and I've seen a lot of like TV shows talk about it, but I've never seen anybody show anything from the investigators' reports that I found on the Australian government's website. And I remember when I was doing the research for this one, I could not believe how dishonest and disingenuous all of these like UFO and paranormal show people are about it. Like they only report it at face value, and they aren't fair and balanced about it. They don't talk about what that guy was going through in his personal life and how he was failing over and over in his flight school.
Yeah.
He was lying about his progress, and I just felt like why do I have to be the guy to point this stuff out? I'm sure a lot of other people have pointed this out too, but it's never the content that floats to the top when it comes to this. It's all very clickbaity, and they want to push this angle that a UFO shot him down without going into the reasons why that might not be the case. So to me, I was really proud of the job that I did on that episode. My overall opinion on that one has not changed, except for the fact that I think at the time I said I was like 51% sure that he committed suicide, but now I'm more like 90%.
Didn't they never find any pieces of his plane?
Well, they found some pieces of a Cessna plane, but they were not able to determine whether it was him or not. Like, because there were some other planes that were missing at around that time that it could have been. But when it comes to him, no trace of him was ever found again, or his plane, at least confirmed. What was I gonna say? like his dad was paying an ungodly amount for flight school, and it is really fucking expensive. And he was telling everyone about how he only had 1 or 2 more courses to pass before he would get his commercial pilot's license. And he was nowhere even near that. And he just kept failing over and over. And I think that the time was it was rapidly coming to where he would no longer be able to keep up the charade. So not only was he about to get exposed for lying to everyone, his dad was probably going to be furious if he found out that his son was just pissing away his money. So I think it's kind of the equivalent of if some kid told his parents that he was going to go to some expensive university, but he just kept flunking his freshman year over and over and just wasting money. And then the time comes to graduate and he can no longer keep up the charade and he can't face it. So I think it's happened before where, people kill themselves because they've been lying about their progress. And then for everyone to find out about their lie is not something they can accept. And so they kill them. They kill themselves. And the act of killing themselves overshadows all of the lies that they've been telling prior to killing themselves. You know what I mean? So that's how I view this one. And he knew that his dad was a big believer in UFOs, so I think that he crafted this plan to tell Melbourne Flight Service about a UFO that was flying around his airplane, and then he just flew off in whatever direction that he was gonna go in to commit suicide. And so one thing I forgot to mention was that another reason I think he crafted this story was specifically so that his family or his estate would not be on the hook for the cost of the destroyed aircraft. So he made up this cover story maybe so that the insurance company would be on the hook instead of his family, his estate, or whatever. I don't know how the law works in Australia, but that's kind of what I was thinking, that if he just said, "Oh, some strange aircraft is zooming around me," and then I just disappear, well, it's not my fault. It's some other aircraft or whatever.
Does Australian aircraft insurance have some sort of shot down by UFO claim?
I don't know. I don't know who would have been on the hook to pay for the airplane, but I think that was his logic there. And I think that he wanted to leave this world on an airplane, like go out on an airplane on his own terms, but without leaving his family footing the bill for the destroyed plane. And this story, all in all, it was convenient for both his legacy and for his family. Like his dad would believe that aliens abducted him and that he might still be alive somewhere, like on their mothership or something. And he would go down in history for having been shot down or abducted by a UFO mid-flight. His family would either not find out or would just overlook the fact that he was lying about his progress, and his family would not be on the hook financially for the downplane. So it's kind of like the perfect story for him to kill himself.
Yeah, I agree. Everything points in that direction, and like the other theories, of like, oh, maybe he just like left to start a new life. Because he was failing flight school, he didn't sound smart enough to pull off something like that, to just go missing with an intact plane to never be seen again.
And dude, fucking low IQ too. Like, I mean, clinically low IQ based on military tests. And I don't know how the military tests are like in Australia, like if you're going to try to enlist, but the ones in America are just like comically easy. It's kind of like that scene in Idiocracy where it's like, if you have one bucket with 5 gallons and another bucket with 3 gallons, how many buckets do you have?
The dude's looking around the people trying to hammer square pegs into round holes.
Yeah, and then the recruiter just goes, "Congratulations, you're qualified for everything." It's like, well, really? That test was really easy. But anyway, do you have anything else you want to add to episode 5?
Just the fact I thought it was cool that you had a flight experience that you could add. You were talking about the the technical stuff and what it's like to fly a Cessna, compared to flying wings compared to flying planes where your wings are below the fuselage. Yeah.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. Sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, like
because you're talking about that like phantom roll, right?
The graveyard spin. So I wanted to say the graveyard spin to me didn't really make a lot of sense. And I know the guys who came up with it are really smart, but I think that Occam's razor here is that he committed suicide. I understand why they might think that he got into a graveyard spin, but to me, I think it's more likely that he purposely killed himself.
Yeah, well, yeah, because a graveyard spin, that's on accident. So why would he go through the whole UFO transmission story?
Well, that's the thing. The theory goes is that he got into the graveyard spin because he was distracted looking up at the stars that he thought was the UFO. So like I said, when you're in a Cessna, when you want to look above you, like when you look to the left or you look to the right, you can't see above you. So what you do is you rock your wings back and forth. And if you're rocking your wings back and forth, maybe he's also distracted by looking up out the front of his windscreen.
But I mean, you'd have to be staring out your windscreen or your window, right, with your mouth open like a chicken in the rain, right? Yeah. Just letting your plane drop and not.
Well, that's exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Like you wouldn't notice the difference in G's. You wouldn't notice the feeling of leaning. Really, that's
exactly my thoughts. Those were exactly my thoughts, because even if you pull slightly over 1G, you can feel it. You can feel it.
1G is
this is
1G
flying
is a
real
ton
plane
of force.
Flying a real plane is so much different than flying like a flight simulator on your computer, because you can actually feel shit. And when you feel shit, you get a completely different sense of what's going on.
It's the same thing between driving and racing simulators.
But I'm saying that it's an even bigger difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my thoughts. I think he killed himself. I just think the graveyard spin theory, it was a nice thought, but I don't think that's Occam's razor.
I concur.
All right, let's move on. Episode 6, The Mad Pooper of Pine Creek. What did you think about this? Did you have any thoughts that you wanted to add to this one?
Aside from it being just another super bizarre, weird mystery, I really only had 2 theories on it, which one was that this lady, the Mad Pooper, might have been targeting the lady who lived there, like just some sort of, I don't know, like bizarre incident, like she got cut off or this lady dissed her, at like a bar or something and just didn't remember, and she's like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you back, The other one is chasing the first high, right? So she's running, she has this emergency, she has to poop out of nowhere, and she just winds up pooping on this lady's front lawn and gets up and leaves and gets away with it scot-free, and maybe just gets this insane rush from it. The greatest high she has ever felt from getting away with this god-awful act, and that's why she keeps going back and doing it, to see if she can feel that again,
Yeah.
So those are my only real 2 theories on that, without going into a lot of detail.
So your first one I can debunk immediately, because it wasn't just the Buddy family's lawn that she was shitting on. So if you listen to that news clip that we rolled it early on in the episode, the news reporter mentioned that she's been spotted defecating outside of a Walgreens and in people's backyards. So it wasn't just Kathy Buddy, but Kathy Buddy became sort of like the centerpiece of the story, because she was the one who actually came forward to the media. She got attention because she was posting flyers all over the neighborhood. And and she was the one being targeted the most. And I agree with your second theory, is that because Kathy Buddy caught her doing it the first time, it became kind of like an extra rush for her to come back and do it again, because she knew that Kathy Buddy was watching out for her in the neighborhood because she got caught doing it. So it became extra dangerous and therefore an extra thrill. It's kind of like chasing that first high, as you described. And yeah. I think that's what this was. And like I said in the episode, I don't think that it was for exhibitionism. I don't think that she wanted people to like see her as she's shitting. I think it was more like wanting to do it and get away with it rather than expose herself.
Yeah, I agree. Cool.
All right. Well,
so we both have the same theory. She did this once for whatever reason, got away with it, and dug how it felt and kept doing it.
Yeah, pretty much. I still stand by what I originally said.
All right.
Hole in the Ground gang.
My first episode.
This was our first episode. So, this one, it was a little bit awkward because doing a podcast over Zoom, it's more challenging than it is in person. But I think it was okay. It was definitely not my favorite episode, but I did enjoy doing this one.
Me too. And I'm sure, people listening could probably hear that the banter between you and I doesn't sound as natural as between you and Ivan, because there's probably like a half a second delay, which is once again super impressive being on opposite sides of the planet, but that's why we tend to sound like we're talking on top of each other, because I hear a gap where I can speak, but by the time I start speaking, you're already speaking again. So it definitely sounds a little more clunky.
Yeah, and the energy is just not the same when the other person's not in the room with you. So
yeah,
it takes me a little bit of time to warm up and become a little bit more natural. So I think we need to like warm up a little bit, between episodes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I haven't given this episode a whole lot of thought because it's so open-ended and it's so highly speculative. But my overall feelings haven't really changed on this one. I just think that they were probably a small group of construction workers, and they wanted to do the big dirty.
Yeah.
And then in the episode, I speculated that maybe they were Vietnam vets that got shat on and spat on, and they just finally got theirs. But to me, that's pure speculation, and it's kind of wishful thinking on my part.
I mean, it holds weight, that theory holds weight, about like why they'd be so comfortable and adept at digging tunnels, but they also could have just been construction workers that have just been moving dirt their whole lives, Yeah. Yeah. I would like to apologize for my uber fuck up I made, right? So in the episode, we talk about how they move 3,000 cubic feet of dirt. And to try to put that in perspective for the listeners, I said, all right, so the front loader, the giant four-wheeled yellow cat with the big-ass bucket on the front, right? That is 1 cubic yard of dirt. And 3,000 cubic feet of dirt is 1,000 of those buckets. But I'm a moron, and I did poor math, right? 3,000 cubic feet is not 1,000 yards. It's only about 111 yards. And I did that after the episode because in my head I was like, you know what? That didn't sound right. That is a metric fuck ton of dirt. And so, yeah. But still, a big, heavy machinery, construction grade, dirt moving bucket. 111 of those. These guys moved with wheelbarrows over who knows how long these guys had to move that dirt without it being noticed.
Yeah, I don't know how you're going to ever recover from that one, man.
Yeah, no, I'm a moron, man. When this blows up and you have 1 million listeners a week, I am going to be shit on so hard for the rest of my life.
You're never going to be able to live it down.
Yeah. One more thing. the detective that was assigned to this case, right? His name was Detective Pagan Cop. And I just got such a kick out of that last name. Like, what a name for anyone in a police role. Pagan Cop. I mean, it's not spelled that way, but it's pronounced that way. It was like, oh, I am a pagan police officer. I just thought that was so funny. Like, what a name for a detective, Pagan Cop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to put that out there.
Yeah. All right. Well, you want to go over episode 8, Brian Shaffer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for this one, I've got to apologize up front kind of for this one because I had some technical issues and that forced me to revert to some super low quality audio. And I had to redo my portion of the discussion part because I had the wrong input selected on my local recording software. So the result was this god awful, distorted fucking voice that you couldn't even understand it. So I had to re-record that section again by myself. So that fucking sucked. It took me a long time to edit the audio in such a way to make it even remotely presentable.
Well, I think you did a great job because I really couldn't tell the difference.
Well, there you go. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything then, but
no, man, you're just trying to be transparent, and that's kind of the whole point of this whole podcast. You know, is just be open and transparent about everything you possibly can be.
Yeah. So anyway, my overall opinion on the case, it hasn't changed at all. I think that he left out the back of that freight elevator with the band. I want to be clear. I think it was with the band. And then after that, something bad happened to him. And whether that's foul play or some sort of overdose, I really have no clue. I lean more towards it being some sort of accident that happened with him, which was then covered up. Like, I'm highly sus of the band for claiming that they don't remember talking to him, when I think that it's highly probable that he tagged along with them after the show out of that back elevator. So
I think they're
hiding
exactly
something.
What happened. Yeah.
I think they're hiding something.
Yeah. Yeah, that is exactly what happened. That guy was going through a rough time, right? And he's at this bar, and now he's having a good time, and the band's playing, and they're adding to his good time, and now the band's set is over, and the good time is going to come to an end. So he's talking to the band, and they're like, hey, do you want to come hang out? And he's like, oh, I can keep this good time going, and it escape all my depression and my, shit that's going on for a little bit longer, and at that point you're already drunk, you're already wasted. It's time to make some really bad decisions. And that probably led to the end of his life. And yeah, like you said, man, the band probably didn't want to deal with that bullshit. They could have been on the road. I mean, they said they were a local band, but still, same thing.
Yeah, I actually heard the name of the band. I just don't want to mention it here, just in case like they are innocent. I want to just. I don't know how local they are or if they're still together, but yeah, like I don't know if they were touring or anything like that. I think they were just like kind of a small time band, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah. Well, still, maybe one or more of the bandmates might have had priors, maybe probation, something like that. Something where they're like, even if this is an accident, I'm going to be in deep shit for even being involved in something like this, Yeah.
I totally agree, man. Like, I think that something got covered up here. Well, do you want to move on, or do you have anything else you want to talk about?
No, man, that's for me, that's open and closed. I mean, like what happened in the very end is a mystery, but I'm pretty sure you and I nailed it, man. He got in that freight elevator with the band, went out the back, left with them, and didn't survive his trip with them.
Yeah, and I think I'm pretty sure that the police already know this. But the problem is it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. So, correct. It sucks, and it fucking sucks, man. Unless somebody comes forward that knows what happened, it's never going to get solved.
Yep, and the family will never have closure, and that is definitely a bummer.
Yeah. Well, Let's move on to episode 9, the abduction of Betty and Barney Hill. So I want to know how you felt about this one before I get into some stuff on this one.
The Return of Ivan. That was a long episode, man. You guys put a ton of effort into that. You guys should be proud of that one. That was
very
in depth.
That one was probably the cleanest one that I've done so far.
Yeah. That was a killer episode. I think for sure these two were abducted because they had literally nothing to gain from lying about it. You were talking that they were a mixed race couple back in, what year was this? The 50s?
1961.
61, right? Civil rights, still a big deal, and the public's view on mixed race relationships, very poor, violently poor. You do not want that relationship out in the media or anywhere where it doesn't need to be. They had no reason to make this up, put themselves in the spotlight, right? But after the husband died, I think Betty definitely kept going and started to make up pieces and bits of it so that she could keep attention on her. I think that she got kind of addicted to the attention, And,
so that's interesting. You actually think they were legitimately abducted by aliens?
Yes, I think they were legit abducted. And after the husband died, the reason that there's inconsistencies in Betty's stories is that, the story was fading into obscurity, and she wanted the attention.
That's an interesting way of looking at it, actually.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like I'm not like shooting your theory down or anything. It's just I kind of disagree, and the reason why I disagree is it's hard to put it into words, but you would have to watch. Did you listen to the Betty Hill interview by any chance from 1999?
I did not. No.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you watched or listened to the interview, I think you would get a better sense of who she is, or who she was rather. To me, I can't really put my finger on it, but there's something about her that I couldn't trust her. Like, I remember when I was a kid and I would read all of these books on alien abduction and UFOs and all that stuff. And I was just kind of a dumb kid, but I kind of believed it at the time because of the star map in particular. But without actually seeing Betty talk and tell her story, that element of bullshit going off in your brain isn't there. So
yeah, I get that. And then the whole thing with the star map, like, it was really interesting, but I mean, there's so many variables to that, to the star map, I mean, because Betty didn't draw the star map. Like, didn't she just give like a verbal description of what she remembered?
No, she actually drew it. So during hypnosis, she drew out the star map as she was recalling it in her mind, right?
Right.
So she drew it. She drew all the lines connecting the different stars and all that. And then Marjorie Fish, later on in the decade, was trying to piece it all together to figure out which stars were in this map, right?
Yeah.
And so she's going to Ohio State, the Ohio State University Library, trying to find all the astronomical data within 55 light years of Earth to find out, like, to construct basically a 2-scale model of our galactic neighborhood. And she does this, but she can't find a match. But then in, I think it was 1972, new astronomical data was released, and she used that new data, completed a new model of the galactic neighborhood, and that's when she found the match. And I'll give this to you in the theory that this was a real abduction and these were all real memories, but she found an exact match basically from one particular vantage point in space that you were looking at this map from. There are these stars. There was a perfect match that matched what Betty drew.
That's looking from a particular point in space to another particular point in space, which the combinations of that are infinite. And then even Carl Sagan shot her down on that.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I think that was kind of like a far stretch, like even chasing down like the star map. But I think a person like Betty Hill being able to draw a star map while under hypnosis, I think that's pretty incredible. You know, like, how are you making that up whilst under hypnosis?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agreed, man. I think the main thing, though, that makes me not believe her story, though, is how human-like the aliens look, how she described them, how the leader could speak English, you know, verbally, you know, as if you and I are talking with a quote-unquote heavy foreign accent. To me, that's so always dumb.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in movies and TV, you know, there's always that theory that extraterrestrial life forms can communicate via telepathy, you know. So
yeah, but she didn't describe it as telepathy. She's just talking normally with the creature, you know.
Yeah, but this is also 1961. There's not a ton of sci-fi movies out there. They probably don't even know what telepathy is or how to describe an extraterrestrial being without just your basic knowledge of what a person looks like. You just compare it to a person. It's got, you know, 2 legs, 2 arms, a head, a torso, you know. That's, you know, you just go from there.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I totally respect your opinion, because there are a lot of things about the case that you can point to and say, wow, that's really compelling. But man, I think if I had to choose, I think it was kind of like a hoax. And, you know, one thing that kind of made me also think it might've been a hoax was, like, you know, their honeymoon got cut short. And so this storm was coming and they're like, oh shit, you know, we've postponed our honeymoon for, I think it was like a year and a half or something. And then when they finally get to go on this honeymoon trip of theirs, they go up to Canada, but then they have to come right back because of the storm coming. And then I could imagine them talking either on the road or at the diner about, well, you know, Barney, maybe we can just do something else for fun instead, and, you know, come up with this
make up a
stupid story. Yeah, well, you know, something like that. And then it became a bigger thing than Barney expected it to ever become. Like, you know, government scientists started to get involved. The Air Force started to get involved. You know, the media, all of that. Yeah. And I think that the downfall of Barney and his health, I think, was directly related to all of the stress that this was causing him.
Yeah, I will not poo-poo that theory at all. Like, that definitely holds weight. You know, I just can't see past the both of them freaking out under hypnosis.
Oh, and there was, okay, so to be fair here, I've got to be fair. There was an unknown object that was detected by Peace Air Force Base's radar at, I think, 2:30 in the morning that night. But, you know, we don't know what it was, but they reported that they detected some sort of unknown object at around that time, which is that it makes the story a little bit more compelling. And it's something that I forgot to mention during the episode.
All right. Well, you're being fair to me. I'll be fair to you. Maybe they did see something weird. You know, maybe there was something in the sky, but maybe they didn't get abducted. You know, maybe that's what gave them the idea. Whether it was a UFO or something else, who knows? But maybe they did see something in the sky that they couldn't identify, and then that's how they came up with the idea for the story. So I'll give you that.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool, man. I did not expect you to say that. That's cool though. I respect your opinion. Max Headroom Incident. This was the last one we did, man. I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to add to this one. or if you have any further thoughts that you want to go over.
Not really, man. That one's still pretty fresh. I really haven't even had time to think twice about it. You know.
Yeah, I still don't. Oh, sorry. Go on.
Yeah, just that it's one of the more bizarre things that's kind of like ever happened. You know.
Yeah.
Just what he did on camera and broadcast. Just like why? Just why?
Yeah.
Every piece of it is just why.
I still think that is some sort of performance art that he did, and
original.
I don't necessarily think that it was like some sort of malice against the networks, or it's like I don't think it was any because of any malice. I think it was either a prank or some kind of performance art, and it had the intended effect of making people think about this, and it wasn't something extremely like profane or vulgar. And like I said in the episode, if he wanted to be vulgar and profane just for the sake of being vulgar and profane, there were many better things he could have done than just that. So
yeah.
But yeah, man, I don't know if that one's ever going to get solved. I think it would take probably a deathbed confession, but I mean,
yeah. And even still, it's like, would you even believe the person on their deathbed? Like, what proof would they have? You know?
Yeah.
It was like, oh, I kept all that gear I used. You know,
I kept the marital aid. It's in my drawer underneath some socks.
It's still in the mouth of the Max Headroom mask. I still use it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is an interesting point, though, you know, because you talked about, or we talked about, you know, choosing Max Headroom as the mask and kind of allowing that character to come full circle, you know, from anti-corporation to corporation face of advertising, right back to anti-corporation. But why would he stick a dildo in the mouth of the mask? You're kind of like,
that's a really good question, man.
Yeah, you're kind of defacing the whole point of everything. I just thought about that right now. Yeah, why would you do that to the mask?
Unless there's some weird metaphor, man. You know, artists are weird people, man. Maybe it was some fucking metaphor that nobody else would understand.
I actually hang out with artists every week. They are very weird people. I hang out with a very specific group. I hang out with metalhead artists, which a very cool and chill and accepting group of people. It's really cool hanging out with them. But man, the shit that comes out of their head and out of their hand to a pen to paper, fucking bizarre, man.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything else you want to say before we go? Our time is running out here.
I don't think so, man. Looking forward to the next 10 episodes.
Thanks, man. Thanks for tuning in. If you've made it through this episode this far, please leave a rating and review if you have an iPhone or some other Apple device. Yeah, I really fucking appreciate anybody who simply listens and enjoys the show. I just have a lot of fun making it, and I think that if I turned this into a monetary thing, it would be less fun for me. So
yeah, then you turn it into a job. No one wants
exactly that. And then it's not fun. Yeah. So all right, man. Thanks for being a part of our 10 episode retrospective. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, me too. I'm happy to be a part of it.
All right, man. Well, I'll see you on the next episode.
You know what would justify a trip out here?
California burritos. Yeah. I knew you were going to say that. Spend like $1,000 on plane tickets. The world's most expensive Yep. World's most expensive burrito.
The fucking epic burrito run.
You know, there was actually a really good burrito I had in Thailand.
Yeah?
At this place in Bangkok called Margarita Storm. And it was pretty close. It's called like the San Diego style carne asada burrito, which was basically like a Roberto's California burrito. It was very similar to that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you know, I could get down on this. Yeah, it was like 98%, you know, the same. I mean, it tasted like something you could get in San Diego.
That's impressive.
Yeah, so I mean, like
outside of San Diego.
So that's gonna be my new burrito source is flying to Bangkok and eating there. Just going there for a weekend and then flying back here. It's like a $400 California burrito.
Cheaper than coming here.